everyone. My name is Mercy Evangelista, and I am an MFA intern. I'll be your host for tonight's Wil Talk. Our digital discussion tonight is with 3 studio tours artists, Cindy Winnick, Kathleen Gallagher, and Carol Tessier. Cindy Winnick is a sculptor and oil painter. Her experiences from living in different places around the world inform her artwork. Kathleen Gallagher devoted her time to printmaking after retiring from the Navy. She has been a monotype printmaker for the past 19 years. Carol Tessier is a mixed media artist who currently works with acrylic paint, nautical charts, songbook sheets, fabric, and hand-printed papers to create colorful collages. We are honored to have these 3 talented artists here this evening to discuss their artistic careers and processes, and to encourage everyone to visit their studios. Additionally, I would like to introduce the host of our show, Will Scott. Will is an art historian with an extensive career as a photographer and the former head of adult programs in the National Gallery of Art. He is uniquely qualified to bridge the gap between artists and the public. I also want to inform y'all that we currently have the spring member show up in Circle Gallery. There's a fantastic variety of artwork here made by our members. And we also have Paint Annapolis coming up in June. If you plan to take part, make sure to sign up. The details are on our website.
Marissa, thank you for that introduction and for your assistance as always. It's you that keeps us on track and keeps things moving smoothly. Most importantly, I want to thank our guest artists. The 3 artists are among those who are going to be featured and were featured for the studio visit program. And they have taken more time to share some information about their careers, their lives, and particularly the works that will be seen in their studios. So when our conversations are through, I just want you to realize that these introductions were recorded after the fact because of a technical issue, and don't be confused about Marissa's encouragement of your participation in some of our upcoming events because unfortunately the studio visit event has already taken place. Thank you. Carol, let's go. The first image, Marissa, and
yes.
This painting is 36 by 36. It's big and bold and splashy and loose. It seems most of my paintings, if not all of my paintings, have my favorite color, which is blue. This one has interesting mark making. It's just loose. It's straight acrylic paint. No collage on this one. Just a lot of fun and excitement.
Well, I love blue, and so you've got my attention riveted already. Next one.
This next painting is a study for a larger work that I did. It's just a sort of a cruciform composition. I try to stick to the color wheel, which is tried and true. You don't put on every color when you get dressed, so you have to choose a harmonious palette. This painting has some drama in it because it has dark colors right next to light colors, right next to dark colors, right next to light colors, and it just seems to be an interesting way for the eye to move throughout the painting. So,
well, Carol, before we go on, let me just say that there's a lot of structure in this, despite the breadth and energy of your brush strokes. And you said it was a study.
Yes, this is this one. I think this is 11 by 14 or 16 by 20, and there's a larger painting that resulted from working this out in this way.
Is it more or less the same? Is it?
I'm sorry.
Is the larger painting more or less the same? Because this really holds its own as it is.
It is. It's just bigger, and okay. Maybe there's more blue.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Next.
Come and see the real. Thank you.
Great. Now I'm really fascinated by your.
Yeah. So. I really like that one.
This is fun. This is a commission painting. If you notice, the painting that the sailboat that's right smack in the middle, if you look on the jib, which is a little sail on the front, there's a dog on there, and that's this was a commission painting for some friends who really love the how I treat water. It's a really busy waterway with lots of papers that I painted and seaweedy looking paper, and off in the right hand corner you'll see the Greenberry Point Towers, so they're local landmarks. They chose the color palette to go with their room. And it's really fun to create a painting with a client. They come in, we pull out all my papers and fabrics, and it's just a really fun thing to do with them.
So you don't feel constrained by working in that way. You actually find that it's an interesting exchange between you and the patron.
It is. And, you know, if I put a blue sailboat on there, a blue mainsail, and they say, oh, I really want it to be green, I just put green over the top of it because I have such a menagerie of fabrics and fabrics that I've collected and then paint. So it's really very unique to be able to tailor it just towards the client. And this is just a part of the painting, because I know you don't put the point of interest, the focal point, right smack in the middle. So this is just a piece of a larger painting.
Yeah. So if somebody comes to your studio, they can say, well, I really like that, but I want you to change a little bit or make me one to my specification. And that's all.
Absolutely.
Part of it. All
Absolutely.
right.
Really fun.
I hope everybody's hearing it.
Yeah. Yeah. This one. And I sold this painting last weekend. This one tells a story of kind of a pathway to the beach. You make your way through the warm sand. You brush by the grasses on either side of you. Then you get up to the wet sand where the little brown sand is. Then you sit in your chair and you can see the breezy sky going by. So there's a lot of movement, a lot of texture, sort of a diagonal composition. Again, relying on just primary colors, just a clean and fun painting that tells a story.
Yeah. Could you take this and do it on, say, 60 by 60 or something scale like that?
I had someone ask me, how big can it get? And I said, I'm only limited by the size of the canvases that I can get. I certainly can get probably a custom size. But my answer to that person, I think I should have said that I can do a diptych or a triptych, and you can have it as big as you want. So
Great.
This one is, I think, again, 36 by 36, something in that range. Yeah.
I'm glad you feel that way, because I've noticed that your works so far, and all the ones I'm familiar with, have a lot of structure. So I can see that you could change the scale because it has so much strength in it.
Well, maybe one of the reasons I have all this structure is I'm a retired CPA. So I'm really trying to use the other side of my brain, trying to loosen up a little bit. But I think the structure might be coming through from that rigidity of being an accountant.
Well, my father was an accountant, and he couldn't have done anything like this, nor would he have appreciated it. So I'm glad you can use both sides of your brain.
Thank you.
All right, next image.
This is a close-up of one of the other paintings that's on there. It's a view from a shore on the Severn River. A client came to me, and this was a little beach he would stand on and go fishing with his son. So again, with the water, and then there's an interesting foreground, some interesting negative shapes in between the grasses. So foreground, interesting middle ground, again with the water, and then in the far off in the distance, the tree line, and then just a pretty broken color, blended color sky. So it was just fun. Again, it's a close up of a larger painting.
Yeah, well, this is a lot of fun for me because I love watercolors, and the background and sky seems to me what I would say I would call more traditional or conventional in the way you handled watercolor, but the mixed media here really gives you sort of that other aspect that's sort of more.
Well, I did a lot of faux painting and big wall glazing, so that's where that blended color comes in. And this is the snow goose. She's hanging on the wall there in the gallery. I since had a frame put on her, but the same thing. If you zoom in on the goose herself, she's a snow goose, sort of. But it's made from nautical charts. So if you zoom in, you can see some local landmarks, a certain river, a certain, Tolly Point, Goose Ledge, certain interesting landmarks that people will appreciate. And again, blue sky, distance horizon, and just again, blended color, fun brush strokes, fun mark making.
Yeah.
Interesting negative spaces in the grasses on either side of her, just really fun and pretty. And she's in the gallery.
Now, my family and I usually go to a lake in Western Maine each summer for a couple of weeks. If I were to come to your studio this weekend and bring along some maps and charts from Western Maine and say, can you make something out of this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It would be my pleasure. Yep. Be great.
Okay. I'll look for some when I'm up there this August.
Good. Okay. I'll count on that. Thanks, Will.
Oh, this is me.
All right. Shifting gears. And this is I don't know who set up the PowerPoint. I didn't do that. But this is a brilliant transition. This is just a terrific, because this is so free and so loose. So Kathleen, jump right in.
All right. Well, this was really the first monotype I ever did.
Wow.
And
great.
I had taken etching and collage and some other printmaking. No, I know collages and printmaking, but at any rate, I was introduced to monotype, and I just like the fact, I think that it's not structured. Carol was talking about structure. I like, there's no structure. Maybe 20 years in the Navy, things are pretty darn structured. It's
Yeah.
like, I want to get away from that. And
Yeah.
I'm really motivated by color. And I think monotype is and monoprint is very intuitive. You just kind of start going with the flow. And I think, like you said, this picture flows. And it was how I was feeling at the time.
Uh-huh.
And I like those colors.
I think that most of our audience understands what monotypes are, but can you give a quick explanation, definition, if you don't mind?
Sure. A monotype is you can only make one, whereas in an etching, you can make an addition. But with a monotype, mono, one. So you have a plate or substrate, mine is an acrylic plate, and you paint on it. And then you put it through a press, and that's what you get. A monoprint has something on it that's repeatable. So some of my other pieces are monoprints where I might use a stencil or a grass or a leaf or something that I could use again. But the picture still won't be the same. So it's called a monoprint.
Yeah.
So it's a fine difference between the two. But the bottom line is, you can't do additions. You get one. You can do what's called a ghost, which is a second printing of the first one. And that result will depend on how much ink is left on the plate. And but it's not going to look the same.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I'm familiar with that approach, and some artists do it on a fairly regular basis. Do you do it very often or at all?
I'm sorry, I'm not following.
Take the second impression, the ghost.
Oh, I almost always take a second impression just because I want to see what it looks like. Because sometimes the second impression is better than the first one. If there's just too much ink on the plate and the first one's a little gloppy or something, the second time it might be a lot better.
Yes.
So not always, but sometimes.
Well, you may be familiar with an American artist named Maurice Prendergast.
I think I've heard of him.
Yeah, he worked at the late 19th, early 20th century, and he's often classified as an American Impressionist, but he also was the first important and one of the most important American practitioners of monotype. So anybody in our audience, and you might be interested in just looking him up online, because I think you'll find his monotypes are beautiful.
I'll do that.
All right, next image, please.
This is the blue crab, and this is a layered monoprint because those little nets and also the crab thing itself is repeatable. So what I do is I make a registration and I lay down, I think I laid down red ink first. I can't remember, red ink. And I put little strings, those are little strings and things like that on it. And then I print it. And so I have, obviously wherever the masking was will be white. So then I lay down blue and I put other things on it and print it again. And it's sort of like, I call it blind collage, because it's really hard to tell exactly what you're doing. First of all, everything's backwards. You're printing in reverse of what you're looking at. So you kind of have to play with your head. And I'm not always sure what I'm going to get. It's like, life is like a box of chocolates thing. I'm just not always sure what's going to show up. In this one, I usually do 3 layers. And I'll tell you the truth, the crab thing was a piece of cellophane that I picked up off the floor on my way to the press. And I looked at it and I said, oh, this might be fun. Let me slap this on there. And it was.
So it worked out great.
It worked out. And the hardest part is like, do I keep going? do I have something doing another layer? And I was with a friend and she goes, you better not do anything to that. Just leave it. And
Yeah, that's a hard part,
so
knowing when to stop,
Yeah.
Too much
that's
detail
true.
is tiring. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I
It's
guess
great.
it's very intuitive process is what I'm saying. It's for me, it's not so much planned as I kind of get into the flow and just go. And you can make, it's very experimental. That's the nature
Yeah.
of monotypes. So you can make a lot.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like the Navy at all.
No, no.
Now, and here's the art historical gem of the day. Did you realize that you're a surrealist?
No.
Okay, many of you in the audience, I think, will know about the French surrealist movement led by André Breton. And they had like a parlor game that they would seriously play regularly. Who knows how many drinks or whatever else they might have had before they did it. And they called it the exquisite corpse. And what it is it would be a sheet of paper, like a piece of typewriter paper, let's say, or drawing paper, and they would fold over the top, and they could write on it. They could, write legible words, or they could make marks, sort of like you described you were doing in the last piece. Then that would be folded over, and nobody else would be seeing what the first person did. So they don't know what's there. And it would be handed to the next person who wanted to do it. And they would go around as many people as wanted to participate. And then that final piece with all of that spontaneity, that accident, that would be the corpse, the exquisite corpse. And they would treat it as a work of art. And
that would be fun.
Yeah.
I
So
would
maybe
like that.
you could do that in the studio.
Yeah, that would be very fun. I would like that.
This is much different, and I'm going to get to the, before you speak about it, the question that I wanted to ask with the first one, the titles. Does the title come first, or do you create the work and then decide what you want to call it?
Title comes last for me. I don't know why, but I can't seem to do it any other way. I've tried, I'll get something in my head and I think I'm going to do that, but invariably I do something else. So
it's working
I've
for
learned. Thank you.
Yeah, it's working out for you. Okay, next image, please.
That's, did you want to talk about the purple one or no?
Sure. If you want to say more about it, go back, Marissa, please.
Oh, we didn't talk about this one. This one, pansies. This one's a gel plate.
I don't know what a gel plate is. You want to tell us about that first?
It's they're called jelly plates, and you can either buy them or you can make them, and they're wobbly like Jello, and you can hand print on them. You don't need a press, so you can put the paper, you put the ink on this jelly plate, and then you put the paper on, and you either use a baron or your hand to press the image into the paper. So that's what this was on. And this was also partially a viscosity print where you take, like the yellow and the white is a loose ink and the purpley blue was a thicker ink. So I put the yellow on first and the white, and then I rolled the darker ink over it, and they resist each other. And that's what I got.
That's cool.
So now I have to really encourage you to look at Maurice Prendergast's monotypes, because he often didn't use a press. He used a serving spoon or a soup spoon, much like you just described working with these jelly prints.
Yeah, I'll do that. I know I have friends that do that.
Yeah. Okay, next.
This is, I did this one during the elections. And it's, there's 3 layers to that. So, and I cut out these little masks, and when I put that down, and the last layer, I see that little man's face came out with the little string that looks like, to me, he's spinning lies. There are a lot of them. And I don't want to get into politics, but at any rate, there's three layers of ink there. So I started, and I use a a transparency medium to make the ink as transparent as possible so that the other colors will show through. So, so you just lay down a plate with the ink on it and just keep playing with it until I get something I like.
So in this case, when you went from one color to another, did you use registration marks or did you let
Oh,
it be
yeah.
marked? Yeah.
No, I always use registration when I'm doing layers.
Yeah.
Otherwise I'd have a big mess. So it's a big mess.
Yeah.
So I always, it's a pretty primitive registration process, but it works.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking the spontaneity of your work, even here where there's more structure than the earlier ones, whether you were using registration.
Yeah.
Okay, next one.
I think I did this one the same day as I did the last one. And these pieces here, the masks, they're just pieces of newsprint that I randomly cut out one night when I was watching television. And then I just take them downstairs to the studio and start playing with them. I usually put the plate with the ink with nothing on it on the press. And then I start putting little pieces of paper or pieces of yarn or whatever it is I'm going to use as a mask. And then I print it and then I clean the plate, put the next color with nothing on it. And I look at what I've got and try to figure out where I'm going to put the next mask to see, so that my goal is always to mix the colors and to have some white showing and not to make mud, which is easy to do.
Well, kind of following up on the way that Carol works, it's made me think, suppose in the studio visit, somebody came in and said, well, you know, my favorite color is green. And can you make something with that as the predominant color? Would you feel comfortable doing that, or you really want to do it yourself and then offer it up to other people?
No, I would do it. I would. I've had people ask me to make them things, and I'll do my best to make what they want. And so, no, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. I know that I often am at odds with my family because I take the photos I want to take, and they often prefer other things. Let's leave it at that.
I kind of like the challenge. If someone says, can you make me this? I kind of like the challenge of doing that.
Yeah. Well, good to know for the listeners then. I really like this.
Oh, thank you. This is a monotype with collage. I should have said that, because the underpinning of that is a monotype. And then I added things like the score, the musical score, but all the papers other than that, all the papers are from other monotypes that I didn't like, but I like parts of them. So I cut them up. I recycle it all. Yeah.
Well, I'll take anything that you don't use. Thank you.
Well, maybe I'll borrow some of your nautical maps.
I think that's great. We could swap. I'd love that.
We could swap. We could do that.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's what that is. And the music, I'm into music. I sing at with the Annapolis Chorale and some other places. So I really thought it looks like composing, not just musical composing, but any kind of composing. Because in my head, there's all sorts of things going on. And it's like trying to sort it out.
So is the music something that is a piece that you chose because the piece is meaningful to you, or you just wanted the design?
No, I'll tell you, I went to the Annapolis Chorale and they were throwing out old pieces of music. And I said, can I have that? And they said yes. And I like the fact that it looks like it's yellowed. You know, I like that old look about it. And then this little piece of music, that little tiny piece near the bottom, that was just a white piece of music. And I did print color onto that and then I cut it. I mean, I had a big piece of music and I printed all this color on it and then cut it up into stuff.
Yeah. Well, this is very much like data collage, and data,
Oh,
the art
mhm.
historian in me, can't resist this sort of thing.
No, I like this.
That's the avant-garde movement in many ways that preceded the surrealists. So you're playing with some big league players here, I think.
Oh, well,
You're
thanks.
doing this in a very compelling way. I'm really enjoying looking at it.
Well, thank you.
Next. Okay, Cindy. Thank you, Kathleen.
You're welcome.
Cindy, you're up.
Look at that.
Okay. So that's the largest of the fabric sculptures I've done so far, 36 by 36 inches. And I actually initially did this as in plaster, the stepping out. And that was a real challenge. And I had to have help from, well, I was taking classes at the community college, Anne Arundel Community College, and Wilfredo Valladolid, who is now head of the whole visual arts department, but was head of sculpture then, helped me to weld the armature, which was a challenge. Maybe I'll say Wilfredo welded it, but I tried. Welding is not my, but then when I did it, and of course, plaster is really heavy, but I wanted to do it again with fabric. And again, because of the stepping out, I mean, you don't have the weight of the shoe isn't quite as bad, but we had to, it was during COVID. And so I didn't have access to the college's workshops. So my husband helped me, and we used a rebar for the main support, and had to use we created a bending jig to do that. And then the rest is some nice aluminum wire that I use for the armature, and chicken wire too, to do the larger volumes. Because when I make the smaller of soft sculptures, I call them soft sculptures, that use fabric batting from for quilt making to wrap around the wire armature, but I didn't want to have to use so much cotton batting, so I made the shoes and the head with the chicken wire.
Oh,
It's
Yeah.
really cool.
now
I love
Yeah.
it.
it is. It's got a great sense of play, and it's
She's fun.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's fun.
good.
It's
That's the
humorous.
idea.
That's great. Let me spin off of that. You're in your studio, so all of those figures that we see around you, are they studies, works in progress, little mannequins to help you, sort of think about what you want to do? What is all that material behind?
No, they're all finished pieces.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Actually, let's see. That's my area. This is the most, I can't see what you're seeing, but this is my most recent one,
Ah.
my goat.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
And-
yeah, that's the newest. I used my husband's cast off corduroys. I told him, I said, I think it's got the right scruffiness of, and they're too worn for you to wear anymore.
Yeah. So how do you share these with the world? What's the venue you use to get the word out about your work and attract people to see it?
Let's see, I had a couple of shows on Maryland Avenue. And this piece, actually, the one stepping out, is in a show in Fort Washington, Maryland, with the Washington Sculptors Group.
Mhm.
So I've had work with Washington, it's in a show now. And I recently had a piece in another Washington Sculptors Group show at the Phillips at the Arc, that's in DC.
Have you?
And,
I don't think I've seen your work in our MFA shows. Have you participated in any of our shows? Maybe I just didn't catch it.
Yeah, yes, I think it was it a year or 2 years ago? I've had pieces in the sculpture show.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I had one at the Circle Gallery, and then I did have actually the plaster version of Stepping Out was you had one down in Bethesda at Gallery B. There was the sculpture show.
Well, our members open shows and even the themed shows are open to all media. So you really ought to think about that as a venue also. I know I'd like to see more of your work, and I can't come to see it this weekend. Okay, all right, Queen for a Day. Now, I'm going to ask you what I asked Kathleen. What comes first, the title or the work?
Well, this one, I think that the title, because there's a 1950s, 60s game show that I used to watch with my mother. Do you guys know it? Yeah.
Yes,
So,
I remember it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to do something, a riff on that, because I always found it, if you remember the game show, it's like the idealized housewife. And I always thought it very frustrating that the prizes she got were things like washing machines and dishwashers. And no, she should get a sports car or something more fun.
Yes. Yes.
So you can't really see in this image, but her scepter is a whisk, and under her cape, she has some hidden tools, which they're like spoons and I think a little wooden cooking utensils, and then she's stomping on forks and spoons. So
that is great. I love it.
Well, yeah, I love it too, because I do remember that show. And I honestly, it's not that I've just become woke. I honestly thought as a child, why would a woman want that? That didn't make her queen for a day.
Exactly.
and my wife told me right after we were married that if I ever gave her an appliance for any reason at all, I'd be looking for a new wife.
Yes. Once my dad gave my mother an electric can opener, and you know what? After that, he asked me to please buy her birthday presents, because the reaction was not positive.
Yes, I can appreciate that. Okay, well, this is a lot of fun. Let's see the next.
Okay, this one is Woman at the Window. And I would, it was inspired by Murillo, you know, the
the piece at the National Gallery.
Yes, Two Women at the Window.
Yeah.
I did this. It's a relief. It's definitely a high relief, because the Washington Sculptors Group was doing a show, their post-COVID show of reliefs, and so I generally do things in the round, but I thought, this is a challenge.
Yeah, this is great. And you know that Murillo is one of the few Murillos of that type that's in the United States. The National Gallery is very proud of having it.
It's a wonderful painting. I love that painting.
Yeah. Well, you're all playing with the big leagues, so that's great. And I hope people will get to see you and talk to you in your studio. But we have time, so let's keep going and see what else you have for us.
Oh, okay. This one is her silver dagger, and I wanted to make a woman warrior. And she has, I don't know if you can see it, but in her hand is a dagger. Mm-hmm. And then the fabric is, I don't know, that looked to me a little Asian or something. So I wanted to play with that. And her skirt, it's almost like armor, but feminine armor.
Yeah. Well, I also thought, in fact, when I first saw this, it looked to me, the color palette of the fabric is very Spanish. So I think that you've sort of created a universal figure, and I mean that sincerely, because as soon as you said the Asian aspect, I can see that very strongly also. Did you have any intention to make any references of that kind, or was it simply the pattern and the texture of the fabric that attracted you?
Yeah, it was the texture and pattern of the fabric, and a lot of this evolves as I go. I have an idea, and then it just evolves. You also can't see in her boots, the heels are wine corks. So.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, let's see what else we have.
Okay, so Franz Marc, you will know who Franz Marc is. German painter. And when I spent 3 years in Berlin. My husband was posted there, I loved the it's the, not the Bleuerheite, the Brücke, die Brücke groups.
Yeah, Die Brücke, the Blauer Reiter, their journal.
Right. So there was a museum right near our house. Anyway, I loved Franz Marc's, the way he painted the horses in a variety of colors. And, Eric Carl's book, A Man Who Painted a Blue Horse. Have you, it's a children's book, but I have that book and it's just fantastic. So I wanted to make a sculpture with that. And those, I had, my husband recently retired and he was throwing away a lot of silk ties. And I grabbed them out of the trash can. And so those most colorful pieces, those are his silk ties.
Lovely.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah, go.
How many hours do you devote to a piece like this? I mean, it's fabulous.
That as you an artist, you know that it's so hard. How do you know that? Because we don't just sit down and at 8 a.m. we work on it for 8 hours or whatever, because I spend a lot of time thinking about it and pinning it. So I made the armature, and I had actually a bronze sculpture that I used kind of as a model for the pose. And then I made it out of chicken wire. And then I always piece all the fabrics and pin them before I sew them, because it's all hand sewn.
Right.
So I really couldn't say, because it
I
doesn't.
would guess that it would be just an astronomical amount of time.
I think more than the actual sewing and putting together, it's the trying to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
Cindy, will you have anything like this underway in the studio when people visit this weekend?
I'm planning to, because I was thinking, well, what can I do? It's hard to paint and then, stop and clean your hands and all of that. Right. So I thought, okay, I think I'll start a new piece, sculptural piece.
And especially this piece, not so much the others, but this one is more overtly playful. How do children and adults, is there any distinction between children and adults' reaction to your work?
Well, no, I don't know. I try to incorporate some element of humor in them. So I remember I had the stepping out, the plaster version, in a window on Maryland Avenue when I had a show there, like a pop-up show. And kids would go by and look at it, and they were just, I don't know if they thought it was humorous or they just couldn't figure out why she had those outside shoes, or something.
Well, it doesn't matter. I wouldn't think. They were engaged. That's exactly. I would say to you, they were engaged. Okay. What do we have? Do we have another one left? At least one. Do we have any more, Marissa?
I believe this is the last one.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I would have called this the Thinker, but I see why you've titled it as you have. So, were you feeling a little boxed in and wanted to express that, or what's the genesis?
Oh, well, yeah, it was during COVID, and we were pretty well blocked in, and it's based on a figure drawing. I regularly draw from the figure. I used to do it at Maryland Hall before COVID, and I will go back. There's a drawing co-op that meets 3 times a week, so I definitely will go back, but I've been working online with a group. And so I had a drawing that I made into a painting. And again, the Washington Sculptors Group had this call for artists for relief sculpture. And I looked at that painting and I thought, ooh, that would work as a relief, because it's fairly contained, the figure, the pose. There's a lot of overlapping. And yeah, so that was the genesis of that. And yeah, I think I was feeling a little close. No, we couldn't go anywhere, Going to the supermarket was scary. It was,
Well, I love the way that you've been so playful and combined these different materials and had to stitch them together. And it's not the stitching, as I would have expected, that plays a significant role. It's the overall concept, sort of the, if you will, the sculptural form. And at least for me, I'm very impressed by that, because it kind of shows you're not thinking as much about the surface and those kinds of things like individual stitches. You're really thinking conceptually of the whole piece. At least that's the way I react to it. So thanks to all of you for sharing your work and telling us so many interesting things about it. And I'm very proud of all of us that we actually have about 10 minutes left. So I know I've got questions in mind, but I want to give all of you a chance to take a shot at the artist and ask what you may be curious about. So let's do that.
So actually, I have a question also. I'm curious to know, for those of you who maybe transitioned from working in your home to working in an actual studio space, how significant was that for you?
I used to work at Anne Arundel Community College. They have a beautiful printmaking studio. In fact, I saw Mr. Earl there, who does beautiful etchings and beautiful screen prints. I saw your show at Paul's. It's lovely. But anyways, I used to work there in this big studio, but I got distracted because I wanted to see what everybody else was doing. And so I transitioned to my own home studio. So it just is better for me, even though I like to talk to people, but I talk too much. And so I need to be by myself.
Anyone else want to take a shot
Well,
at that?
when I first started painting and studying, I had 2 small children. And so it was a matter of, if you were going to set up the easel in the dining room, and then you had to get it all cleaned up before they got home, because you didn't want, a 3-year-old to have their hands in the oil paint or anything. So, well, now I don't have little ones at home anymore, but still, just my studio is a converted one-car garage, but it's just enough outside my house. I have to walk out the door and come in here, and it gives me that ability to focus without, the washing machine. And
Yeah.
So I think it's very helpful.
Get up and go somewhere and do it, and commit to doing it. Commit, maybe painting, doing something every day, even if it's cleaning your brushes or gessoing some canvases or, placing orders. Just try to do a little something every day. It's a good discipline.
Yeah, an artist friend of mine in Portland who does multimedia sort of things now, she had told me that I think it was one of her instructors in graduate school said, rub 2 sticks together. If you're, it can be hard work. You might not feel inspired. Just keep rubbing 2 sticks together and something will catch. So I try to think of that sometimes.
Yeah.
All right. That's a great question, Marissa.
Thank you.
Anybody else? There's something in the chat. Is that a comment or a question?
It's a comment. Someone mentioned that they love the woman in the window.
No, thanks.
Wonderful piece. Okay, well, if nobody else, we've expired most of our hour now, and if nobody's dying to ask a question quickly, of course, you can go to the artist studios and meet them and talk more and ask all the questions you want. So again, thanks to everybody for listening in, and thanks especially to the artists. I think it's been a really enjoyable and interesting conversation for me. Hope it has been for everybody else. And as usual, Marissa, thanks for your help keeping everything running along. So,
and please come and visit our studios. You'll really enjoy. We'd love to meet you, hear your questions, see your responses. I share a space with 14 others at Local by Design at the gallery, and we are so looking forward to seeing you. We're going to have a watercolor demonstration. I'm going to show how I, print some papers, and some of the other artisans will be here as well. So please stop by.
Great.
And I want to come and see you, Kathleen and Cindy, but I guess we can't.
That would be great.
Before we go, I see
We'll
Joan.
plan that for another time.
Joan?
Yeah, my one comment is I'm going to be at the studio all weekend and I won't be able to visit any of the other exhibiting artists. And I wish there were some way that we could all see each other's studios because I'd love to visit with you all.
Well, we'll work on that, Joan. Maybe we can facilitate that somehow from the
That
MFA.
would be great.
That would be
Okay.
I
great.
hope people
Great,
come.
yeah.
All
I'm
right.
looking
Thanks,
forward to
everybody.
seeing people. Thanks,
Great
Will.
seeing
Thanks
you
for
all.
the-
Thank you so much for stopping
Bye,
by.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.
Ciao.